everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the After Show. That's right. You're not seeing things. We are not in our studios. We are actually together. We're in Star Wars costumes because it's Star Wars Day today here at Fan Expo 2023. So we figured why not film our brand new After Show for the new show, Ahsoka. Mr. Jeff, or should I say
Aka?
General Kenobi.
Hello there. Guys, we are here at Fan Expo 2023. We have a booth, not here, but once we saw that there was going to be an Ahsoka booth run by Disney for the new Disney Plus show, we had to come here to talk about the Ahsoka show. Now, we don't have the kind of time that we would need to have to break down the first two episodes. What we want to give you guys is kind of a preview of how this after show is going to work. This one's going to be a little bit different than the other after shows we've done.
Well, there's a big difference here is you have no experience with any of these characters. So Jeff is not an adept of the Rebels show or the Clone Wars series. So a lot of these characters that we're seeing in the Ahsoka show, including my boy Chop over here, he has no clue what's going on. So a lot of these episodes that we're going to be doing this time around are going to basically be me cluing him in on what is going on with all these characters and these storylines and so on and so forth.
Because JS has watched the Clone Wars in its entirety and Rebels, is an aficionado of all things animated Star Wars. So I am
aficionado's a big word, bud.
Well, you still know who this droid is, who just looks like a discount R2-D2 as far as I'm concerned. So I mean, it's not. I don't know what any of these things are. This weird looking cat.
So maybe we can start there actually. So for a lot of the people that are not familiar with Rebels specifically, the show mainly takes place on Lothal, the planet where Rebels takes place.
Sure, if you say so.
What you see here is actually a Loth cat. One of the characters in Rebels, Ezra, who is the Padawan in that show. One of his powers is he can connect with animals. So there's a lot of animals in the show. There's a lot of references to him not talking to them, but almost. He has a pet Loth cat that you can actually see here on display. So a lot of it is happening there. Now, a lot of the scenery that you're seeing in this show is taken right out of Rebels. Where Sabine is living in that tower thing, that's actually where Ezra lived in the show. And there's the opening scene where you see the camera come up to it and pan up to the tower again. Right taken from the Rebels show.
And a lot of what I've seen talked about online as far as the show goes, it does indicate it is essentially a direct sequel to Star Wars Rebels. So guys, as you're watching the after show week after week as we're talking about Ahsoka, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get me essentially coming into every single episode, not really knowing any of the background and experiencing all of it, the plot and the characters, as someone that doesn't know any of this. And then JS is going to be there to almost annotate everything for us so that we all have an idea of what's going on in the show, especially me. So I think that's going to give everybody a better perspective instead of both he and I knowing the whole show inside and out, or he and I not knowing anything about it. In this case, it's going to be he knows everything, I know nothing. We're going to meet you guys in the middle.
I think to start off, they've already let us in onto the loose plot of the show, which is finding Thrawn. The bad guys are after Thrawn. They've introduced a lot of concept like the Night Sisters, which I'm assuming you are unfamiliar with.
Completely unfamiliar.
The Night Sisters, again, are a race of witches. Darth Maul, same race. But the females are witches. The males have horns on their heads and look like Maul and his brother, right?
Fair.
So they introduced these concepts in Ahsoka. So a lot of concepts that we've known in animation we're getting in live action. And they're hunting for Thrawn. They drop the heir to the Empire quote again a couple times, referencing the Timothy Zahn books. So I feel like they're going to take some of that stuff, insert it in here somehow. This is kind of going to be their representation of heir to the Empire. What did you think of the first two episodes? I know you went in completely blind, not knowing who these people are.
So it's a give and take. There's a pros and cons. The pro is most of the people on the show are very good. Like the acting is very good. There's a couple where you're just like, it's a little bit, but that's to be expected. It's an ensemble cast. The show looks amazing.
Oh yeah,
it might be the best looking Star Wars show to date. It's a very, very well structured, well shot, and the VFX in the show are outstanding. They're movie level VFX. However, there were a ton of times, not a ton, there were enough times where I'm like, I don't know who that is. I don't know who they're talking about. I don't know what the reference is. I don't know what any of that means. So
That's my worry with the show, that people like you that aren't necessarily up on Rebels are going to have a hard time not only getting into the show, but really grasping all the little tidbits that they're dropping, because you're watching this and a lot of it seems so important. Maybe it won't be, but as a viewer, if these things feel like they're important bits of information and you don't get them, you're going to feel left out, whether they are actually important or not. So that's my real concern here. But overall, I thought it was a fantastic episode, guys.
Yeah,
we got reconnected with a lot of characters that we hadn't seen in years. We got to see a bunch of characters like Chopper and Hera and Sabine in live action. Actually, Sabine's helmet is right over here. Sabine, by the way, is the Mando of the group. She's an artist, hence why her helmet and her armor is always all painted up. There's a lot of references to that in the show. You see a lot of drawings. She's the one that draws, right?
Gotcha.
So when she goes to Ahsoka's ship and she looks at the bunk and there's a bunch of Lothcat drawings, that was her bunk. That's the reference, right?
And I understand not wanting to bog down the show with a ton of exposition for people like me who haven't seen a lot of the background shows, because they're going to be worried about pacing. There's only 8 episodes, but at the same time, I am hoping there's going to be at least one plot-heavy, exposition-heavy episode to catch people like us up on a lot of who these characters are, what they represent, and why we should be attached to them the way you guys are already so attached to them. Because, like you were saying, like everybody's so excited to see this droid Chopper, and I'm like, it just looks like every other astromech droid.
But Chopper has an attitude, and once you start noticing
I don't know that because I haven't
Chopper's
seen
the comedy relief of the show, right?
Yeah. So we'll see where it goes. I'm excited for how this is going to develop, and I think we've talked about this before. Our prediction sort of thing, especially when it's been announced Dave Filoni is going to be putting together a movie that's going to take place in this Filoni-verse that he's creating, and I think it's safe to say that Thrawn is probably going to end up being sort of the Thanos,
the big bad, he's the overarching big bad
of this thread. And that's something I'm, as a fan of the Timothy Zahn books myself, that's something I'm looking forward to. But is there something specific, JS, and I know we got to be short today, guys, we're going to start wrapping this up, but is there something that you haven't seen yet that you're eager to see in the show based on your past knowledge of what's come before?
Well, Ezra, for sure. I mean, Ezra, who would now be an adult in this timeline. It's one of the only characters we haven't seen yet from Rebels in live action. We've seen Zeb in the last episode of Mando.
Right.
That big purple guy in the bar, I think I was telling you, that was Zeb. We've now seen Hera in the first episode. We've seen Sabine. We've seen Chop. We've seen, obviously, Ahsoka. So Ezra's going to be a big deal. I think you figured out so far that for them, it's not looking for Thrawn, it's looking for Ezra.
Right.
Because Ezra's technically, as far as they know, with Thrawn.
Right.
So when Thrawn comes back, we're assuming Ezra will come back as well, and then we'll have a proper Jedi with Ahsoka. So, we'll see how that all goes down. Thrawn himself. I mean, I had my own fan choice for the actor, but after seeing that trailer, man, I cannot wait to see what he does with that character.
So, guys, you heard it here first. So we are going to be doing an in-depth breakdown of the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka. We're not doing that here today because we just don't have the time, but we will be doing an in-depth breakdown of every single episode of Ahsoka. You can catch it on the after show on the Geeks Co channel, as always, week after week, shortly after the show, which now airs on Tuesdays, by the way, guys, is when Ahsoka's coming out. JS, anything you want to jam us out on here with?
No, I think that'll be it for today. Make sure you stay geeky, everybody. If you haven't clicked that like and subscribe button, make sure you do that. It's 100% free. It really helps us out. And we'll see you next week.